We are launching Season 5 of The Hardest Word with something we haven't had before, an apology from a murderer. Greetings, this is The Hardest Word. I'm Brett DeHoot.
I'm sorry for that.
I'm really sorry.
Forgive me.
And I deeply regret we haven't done it.
My remorse.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
A long time ago, before the global pandemic of 2020, I thought it would be fascinating to get apologies from people living within the prison system. And so I made contact with the Justice Arts Coalition. And Wendy Jason in particular went out of her way to help me connect to people living in the US prison system and what a system it is. So Wendy spread the word far and wide through her colleagues who work to bring some creativity and humanity into prisoners' lives. Well, it took a while, but I finally got a letter from the R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility in California from Joseph Shynak, who's serving a very long sentence for murder. He wrote me a note and attached to it his letter to Governor Newsom. Now, he's the governor of California, of course, and Joseph was writing to him for clemency on his sentence. I won't explain the events that led to Joseph being imprisoned because his apology details them. It's a remarkable thing to apologize for taking another man's life. It took a long time for Joseph to be caught, tried and found guilty of the murder of Rafael Verdejo. In that time, as far as I'm aware, he only made one acknowledgement or apology for the crime, and that was to his wife. Now, of course, in 2021, he's a very different man to the man he was in 1993, and he is, if we are to believe his letter, very apologetic and very regretful for the way he's lived his life. Of course, there are cynical people out there who might think, well, what else would Joseph write to Governor Newsom? Governor Newsom, of course, has the capacity to release him from prison, so he's a fairly motivated apology writer. You can decide for yourself. Here's what Joseph had to say.
Dear Governor Newsom, my name is Joseph Shynak, and I robbed and murdered Rafael Verdejo in the city of Santa Clara on December 26th, 1993. I am writing as a citizen of the state of California to apologize for this crime and to express my remorse and sorrow for committing this heinous act. I'm also writing to express my remorse for living the majority of my life as a criminal and for being a burden to this state and its citizens. On the night I murdered Rafael, I intended to enter his home, overcome him, tie him up, and rob him of both drugs and money. During the robbery, we began fighting, and I made the despicable and callous choice to kill him. After I murdered Rafael, I ransacked the house, I wiped down all the fingerprints, and then I crept out the door like the coward I was. I gave no thought to the consequences of my actions, including the effects they would have on Rafael's family and community. I wanted to get away with my crime. That was the only thing on my mind. This murder was extremely brutal and violent, fueled by drug abuse. I was high at the time, in fear that I would be caught. I was not arrested for the murder of Rafael Verdejo until 12 years later on August 5th, 2005. I spent almost 4 years in the Santa Clara County Jail, pled guilty to first-degree murder in 2008, and received a sentence of 25 years to life in prison. I am currently serving that sentence. Sorry is a very, very small word. It is an especially inadequate one in this instance. Saying sorry will not restore Rafael to life, erase the terror I inflicted on the citizens of the city of Santa Clara, or relieve the grief of Rafael's family. Yet, despite its smallness and inadequacy, sorry is the word I must use to communicate my remorse and regret for having murdered a fellow human being and leaving a community without one of its members and with the memory and scars that a crime such as this leaves. Governor Newsom, I am truly sorry for committing the murder of Rafael Verdejo and for the pain, terror, and suffering I have inflicted on his family and community. One of the reasons I am willing to say that I am sorry is that my sorrow is not just a feeling, although it does include feeling. In addition to feeling sorrow, I have made fundamental changes in my character. My sorrow is accompanied by actions that demonstrate the truthfulness of my claim of remorse and regret. I am no longer a drug abuser. I am no longer a thief. I am living in prison not as a convict, but as a citizen of this state, doing my best to be an example to other prisoners and demonstrate that change is possible. I now openly share with those who are interested who it is that has changed me from a despicable creature who callously murdered a fellow human being into a man who does his best to love God with all of his mind, heart, and soul, and his neighbor as himself. I have also realized just what a burden that I have been to the state of California and its citizens. Most of my life I've been involved in the criminal justice system, from 1984 till present, and have probably cost the state at least $1 million or more in court time, incarceration costs, attorney wages, probation and parole supervision costs, as well as the cost of all the things I have stolen over the course of my life and the fear and anxiety that I have caused my fellow citizens by my criminal lifestyle. I owe a debt to this society that I cannot pay. There was a time when I thought that I should be locked up forever like a wild dog because I could not function properly in society. I have hurt those who love me. I have preyed on others without regard for their well-being and property rights, and I have been selfish and self-serving for the majority of my existence. However, I no longer feel that way. I no longer prey on others. I look to the interests of others as well as my own interests, and I have found that change, true change, is possible. I am no longer the same man who was incarcerated. I deserve my sentence, but I have come to believe that I have a duty to earn my freedom and become a productive member of society. I should not be allowed to hide in this prison system, costing the state and its citizens thousands of dollars each month to house, feed, and supervise me. I do not deserve, however, to be freed so that I can live life on the outside without regard for all the pain and suffering that I have inflicted on others. I have a duty and a desire to spend the rest of my life reaching out to others who are on the same path of destruction that I was on. I wish with all of my being that I could fix what I have done, but I cannot. I can only do my best to live my life in honor of Rafael, his family, and those who have been victims of my crimes. I promise you and my fellow citizens of California that is what I am doing and will continue to do. Thank you very much for your time. Joseph Shynick.
Well, that's not a letter you get every day. I should point out, of course, that Joseph was unsuccessful in his bid for parole. And if you want to know more about the Justice Arts Coalition, you can go to justiceartscoalition.org and there'll be a link in the show notes. There are more apologies from the US prison system to come in upcoming episodes, and they are also remarkable. I'll be interested in your response to the sincerity or otherwise of that apology. Can an apology ever make up for a life that's been taken? Does enough time pass for us to say, okay, let us move on? I look forward to your comments on Facebook about just that. And for another take from another man convicted of a crime, a lesser crime than murder, stay tuned for an upcoming episode where I interview a remarkable man by the name of Nellie Yoa. You won't want to miss that. Well, it's time to bring this whole sorry business to a close. On behalf of our audio director, Brian Wallace, and me, your host, Brett DeHoot, thanks for listening. The website, thehardestwordpodcast.com. Farewell.